Welcome into the All City Winter Meetings episode. We're here from San Diego. We're at the Winter Meetings right now.
Yeah.
You got myself, Ryan Herrera. I'm from CHGO. You got Patrick Lyons, our DNVR Rockies expert, and Jesse Friedman, our PHNX Diamondbacks expert. How you doing, guys?
Dude, we're excited. We're here in San Diego, the epicenter of the baseball world, the epicenter of rumors, and hopefully the epicenter of trades as well.
Well, we got a fun episode planned. The big thing is another kind of possible trade idea. One of the things that kind of broke over the weekend was Bryan Reynolds asked for a trade from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates said they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. But we're going to assume that they come to an agreement and they trade him. Patrick, I want to know, does Bryan Reynolds fit in Denver? Does he fit on the Colorado Rockies?
Bryan Reynolds absolutely fits on the Colorado Rockies. Is he as good of a candidate as a Brandon Nimmo? Probably not, but maybe not by a ton. I think the biggest question for Reynolds is probably his defense. He's been playing center field mostly for the Pirates, but the defensive metrics have not been too kind to him.
They've soured.
They have soured.
So he's probably, he might even be more of a Gold Glove caliber, corner outfielder. He'll go to right because Chris Bryant's in left field. So he doesn't necessarily fill that void as far as a defensive center fielder goes. Definitely has the pop in the bat like a Brandon Nimmo, and can also hit left-handed. Bonus, he can hit right-handed as well. That's called a switch hitter, kids. Rockies have not had a ton of those in their team history in general. They got Michael Toglia right now at first base and right field, coincidentally enough. So I think he would be a good fit. Again, the defensive questions that you have, I don't think, take him out of the running and say, he's just not good enough. I think he could be good enough, especially if you're getting close to 30 home run power out of a guy like Bryan Reynolds, and you're getting it from the left side, bonus, right side as well.
Yeah, it seems like his 2022 numbers aren't what they were in 2021. 2021 was an incredible year. He was an all-star. I don't think anyone knew who Bryan Reynolds was going into that season. And frankly, they still might not know who Bryan Reynolds is.
He plays in Pittsburgh.
Because he plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But yeah, I think it's interesting, like you mentioned, the statement the Pirates made about this and the fact that it doesn't seem like the Pirates are particularly inclined to make a move here. Maybe that's just posturing. I mean, they can't come out and say, like, yes, we are definitely going to give him what he wants.
That's my thought.
You lose.
Right?
Yeah, you lose all of your trade leverage. So that wouldn't make any sense either. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think the Pirates are coming into this and they're like actually serious? Like, no, really, we're actually not going to move him? Or is that more just like a posturing sort of a play?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think like they like you said, they can't give up their leverage. They can't come out straight up and say that, hey, we're going to trade Bryan Reynolds. But at the same time, like they have a good young core. Like Brian Hayes, I'm the shortstop. I'm blanking on his name. O'Neal Cruz. There you go. Guy, he hits missiles. But they have good, solid players coming up. Obviously, they're going to get another high draft pick this year, but I think they could get every year. So they're going to have good young group of players coming up. And Bryan Reynolds, he's still relatively young, and he's a good player. And when you're trying to build something, trading one of your best players away doesn't always help with that. It may help you get a few prospects, maybe a couple guys in AAA that can come up soon. But like this guy's like you said, a former All-Star, and he was awful defensively this year. Like there's no question he had like negative 14 defensive runs saved in center field.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I didn't know it was that. Oh my gosh! Negative 14,
negative
Yikes.
7 outs above average in center field. His UZR was negative 2.6. Like the defensive metrics did not favor Bryan Reynolds this year, but the fact that he was still almost a 3-WAR player this year shows you how good he is offensively.
Yeah,
and then to kind of spin that back around to Colorado, I'm like, maybe you move him into the corner where he's a little less exposed to the elements of Denver, but then he hits the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
Like that's when you said he fits, like that's what I'm thinking.
He's a center fielder in name only.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Again, if you slide him over, that's fine. If there's just, it's a good bat. It's a good bat to have out there. 3 years left of club control before he does finally hit free agency. So
does that make sense for the Rockies though? Does that make sense for the Rockies to trade for a guy who has 3 years of team control with where they are right now? Like you're gonna deal a lot to get Bryan Reynolds. I know the defense metrics aren't what they once were, and his value has maybe dipped a little bit because of that. But you're gonna deal a lot, and I don't know why the Rockies would do that, frankly, for 3 years of control.
Where were you in March when they signed Chris Bryant? No, that's true. It's funny, in our Diehards Only Discord, there's been some conversation about possible trades and things of that nature. I think that's where we were having this discussion. And okay, Bryan Reynolds, does he fit? You go ahead and acquire him. Let's get in a second here what it could possibly take, what they would have to give up for 3 years for Bryan Reynolds. If that means, one of their top prospects in Drew Romo, you go, no way. You're not going to give up the catcher of the future. Rockies have never had an all-star catcher before in their team history. But what if you go and trade Drew Romo and you get Bryan Reynolds and, maybe you bring back a relief pitcher? I don't know if they would move off of a guy like David Bednar, who's from that area and everything, was an all-star last year.
David Bednar is so good.
He is
really, really good.
All right, so he's not coming over, but a good relief pitcher that you also get in that kind of deal. And then you immediately turn around and give a 4 or 5 year deal to Wilson Contreras. Now, are you thinking about the Rockies potentially as a contender with Reynolds and Bryant in your outfield, young shortstop and Ezekiel Tovar? You got McMahon, Rogers, Elias Montero, Nolan Jones, some kind of combination at second and third, Crone at first base, along with Michael Tolia. Now you got Wilson Contreras and Elias Diaz behind the plate. The rotation kind of takes a step forward, or at least has been what it's been in years past, 17, 18, 19. Maybe, just maybe, you have a contender and you go, okay, I see what's happening here, but that's going to come at the cost of a guy like one of your top prospects in Drew Romo.
If the Rockies trade, if they're going to make a big trade, shouldn't it be for a starting pitcher? Isn't that what the Rockies franchise is really hungry for? If you're really going to push the chips in and go get one of the bigger names with 3 or 4 years of control or whatever it is, I feel like it's got to be a starting pitcher if you're the Rockies. Position players have not generally been the issue for the franchise, as far as I can tell as an outsider. And granted, it's a very hard place to pitch, and nobody's numbers are going to really look that great in that ballpark. But I think that's, in my mind, that's still where the talent deficit really is with starting pitching. So for me, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it has to be for pitching, right? You got to acquire that. And even if you do convince the Pirates to part with David Bednar, does that move the needle enough on the pitching side? Probably not. So, that deal doesn't necessarily make sense. Again, you would still have to go out and sign at least Wilson Contreras and be your new starting catcher in order to make a Bryan Reynolds trade make sense in that capacity, because you're giving up so much of your future and you're trying to speed up that clock just a little bit. We just recently talked about Brendan Rodgers. Is he a trade chip? A guy who still only has 3 years left of himself on the Rockies. So now you got Reynolds and Rodgers becoming free agents in the same offseason following the 2025 season. And that's now almost like your window where you have to contend and you have to do certain things. And you got to do it without the ability to really go out and acquire a free agent pitcher. Pitchers don't want to come to Colorado. There's something wrong with you, unfortunately. Sorry, pitchers out there in the world, past, present, future. You don't want to pitch at Coors Field.
That's why I can understand why.
Yeah,
I can understand why they don't want to pitch at Coors Field, considering they're going to give up 500-foot bombs every once in a while. That if I'm a pitcher, that terrifies me, pitching at Coors Field. It's a completely hitter's ballpark. We know that.
Yeah,
we know that for sure. So
it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, because it's the singles that are the biggest thing, because the outfield is so big.
It's actually, it doesn't seem like it's homers as much as people want to say it is.
But you could give up a long homer, and that would be very
you could.
That would kill me. If I'm a pitcher and I give us 500 feet, I'm like,
well, 4 of the top 5 longest home runs in Major League Baseball last year, we're at Coors. So
exactly,
that's going to happen. But it's those dinks and dunks that keep the rallies alive, and it's not worrying about the run you just gave up. It's trying to get rid of that next one, and that's going to inflate your stats. And if you're a guy signing a short-term deal, again, you go into that negotiating room, teams are going to hold that against you and say, but look what your ERA was here. Yeah, but I was really good on the road. It doesn't matter. Same thing for hitters to an extent too. Man, you were really good at home, but then on the road, you were really bad. That's the Coors Field hangover. That. Those are the splits that are going to happen. And yet when it comes to negotiation, or even when it comes to the end of the year voting for MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, you name it, that's still held against guys when you got to look and say, well, look what Kyle Freeland did in 2018. Probably deserved a few more Cy Young Award votes.
Yeah,
because he didn't just do that in the NL West. He did it at Coors Field. That's the impressive feat. And so it's always used against people involved in the Rockies in some form or
Yeah,
other.
it never really seems to work for them. It's
No.
always against you. I don't know how that works.
It feels like we kind of spent this whole time, like you at the top, you said like Bryan Reynolds absolutely fits, and it feels like we kind of spent this whole time saying how he doesn't. Because you talked about the death of like a singles, the death with 1,000 paper cuts. If Bryan Reynolds' defense is as bad as it was this past season, moving forward, does that really help you that much?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Does his offense offset it?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna come back to the original point. Is like after this whole conversation, if the Rockies decide to trade for Bryan Reynolds, depending what the package is, are you for it? Are you still for it? For the Rockies picking up Bryan Reynolds in a trade?
I would be if the deal was right.
Really?
Again, in my head,
if the deal was right. So
you can't trade Zach Veen, you can't trade Romo,
Okay.
you can't trade Tovar. Adiel Amador would almost certainly. He's their next big young guy, 19-year-old shortstop, who was an all-star in the California League. So again, has a long way to go. Maybe even have to give up Warming Bernabel, a guy you just added to the 40-man roster. Had a really good season at 20 years old in Low A Fresno and High A Spokane. Played in the Arizona Fall League. Again, it might end up having to be more quantity of prospects than the quality. That being said, I don't think the Pirates would accept a deal like that. But if you could work something out and make it work, I think it would be good, because I'd rather have that. I'd rather have 3 years of Bryan Reynolds when maybe the window doesn't quite open until the end of his tenure, to the end of 2024, and maybe you only get him for a real run in 2025. Might be better to have something like that than to lock yourself in long term to Brandon Nimmo, where the next 2-3 years are almost a waste.
Yeah.
And then when they finally start to get good, now you've got a big contract in Bryant. Now he's in his mid to late 30s. Nimmo is in his mid to late 30s. And you want to go out and sign a guy, but now you don't have that payroll flexibility. Bryan Reynolds would almost insure against that.
Well, thank you for tuning in. This is All City Media. We're here at the winter meetings here in San Diego. For Jesse Friedman, for Patrick Lyons, I'm Ryan Herrera. We'll talk to you soon.